Okay, well, good evening, everybody. It is exactly 7:30 p.m. and welcome to this week's Greencastle Virtual Music Festival. And at this time, I'd like everybody except Hubby Jenkins to turn off your cameras and mute yourselves. So let's get that. Okay. Thank you very much. And I assume that everybody can hear me. And and please be sure that you have muted yourself. Let's see, we're going to mute all. Or, oops, cancel. I don't want to unmute. I don't want to mute Hubby. All right, let's see. Has to unmute. Hubby, I accidentally muted you, so you should unmute yourself. Yeah, okay, great. All right, so I am Eric Edberg. I am Emeritus Music Professor at DePaul University. I'm coming to you right now from Gobin Memorial United Methodist Church on the edge of the campus of DePaul, where the Greencastle Virtual Music Festival had its roots as the Greencastle Summer Music Festival. And except during pandemics, we have a concert every Wednesday night from Memorial Day until school starts in the fall. This year, we're doing virtual concerts every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. So this is our actually first live streamed concert. Usually they've always been pre-recorded and I watch them together on Zoom. So Hubby Jenkins, it's great to have you with us. I've been asked to say that this program has been made possible through a grant from Indiana Humanities in cooperation with the National Endowment for the Humanities. Thank you very much. Thank you to the DePaul Performing Arts Series for making this possible, the Greencastle Summer Music Festival family of donors, our endowment at the Putnam County Foundation, the Putnam County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I think I'll stop talking now. If I didn't thank you, and you need to be thanked, consider yourself thanks. And now let me turn everything over to Hubby Jenkins, who we're so thrilled to have with us, and he's going to be performing for about 40 minutes or so, and then we'll ask everybody to turn their cameras back on, and we'll have a discussion. So, Hubby, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Hubby Jenkins, and I play old-timey American music and talk about Black people pretty much daily, whether I'm in front of an audience or not. And so, yeah, it's great to be with you in through the fiber optics and all that. And I guess I always like to just start with a banjo tune. It gets me, knocks all the cobwebs off, and then we'll get started. So we'll just play some tunes. Walking balls, walking balls, walking balls. Well, I don't belong to you. I belong to the steel driving crew. Work one day, just one day, just one day. Ain't gonna lay down in my shanty too. Asked the boss for a job, for a job. He said, young man, what can you do? I'll haul a track, I'll pull a jack, I'll pull a jack. I can pick and shovel too. Walking balls, walking balls, walking balls. Well, I don't belong here. Walking balls, walking balls, walking balls. Well, I don't belong to you. I belong, I belong, I belong to the steel driving crew. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I guess everything we're talking about is the Great Migration, biggest movement of people within the Americas, millions of black people fleeing the South. Me, myself, I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn, but my family left North Carolina, Reidsville, North Carolina, in the late 50s, early 60s. And after the blackout in the 70s, a bunch of people went back because it was too crazy for them. But I'm also a product of this movement of people, which lasted approximately from World War I into the 70s, right? And so I guess one of the things I always talk about anyway is just, the culture that I was separated from, being a Yankee, being a Northerner, and also just generally being an American. What kind of things do we lose, or what sort of things change as far as we recognize our musical identity with the Great Migration? So hopefully I'll have a thing or two to say about it in the next 40 minus change minutes. And so I always like to start with putting my phone on Do Not Disturb and then talking about the banjo. The banjo is a black instrument. It is a slave instrument. The roots of American music happen on this instrument. For the first 100 years of its existence, black people, Africans, enslaved, who created it based on instruments they had back in West Africa, such as the akonting and other such instruments, they were the only ones who played it. And then when white people got into it, they created blackface minstrelsy, an art form that became the basis of our identity, our humor, our musicality. The first wholly American music is coming out of this instrument. And first blackface performers were imitating sounds that they heard coming from plantations. And of course, making it terribly racist for some reason, but well, I guess we know why. We could talk about it a little bit more. But I guess I'll transition from our warm-up to a song I love to play entitled Little Log Cabin in the Lane, written by a man named William S. Hayes. I think he was from Kentucky. And it's a little bit after, with this black minstrel period, blackface minstrel period. And it's a song about a slave missing the days of slavery. And so, not a true story. But we're talking about, what sort of things, what sort of changes are happening to the black experience almost as they're happening. And songs like this, stories like this, are transmogrifications of what the black experience was. A slave missing the days of slavery and a post Civil War country lends to a lot of terrible legislation, terrible treatment, guilt swaying, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's an interesting place to start with our journey of the music and the peoples and how their experiences are told. So here we go, Little Log Cabin in the Lane. My mistress and my master are dead, sleeping side by side. Spirits now are journeying with the bliss. Was a happy time for me many years ago, when the donkeys used to sing out in the cane. But I'm the only one that's lived with this old dog of mine in that little old cabin down the lane. Little Log Cabin in the Lane, about based on a true story. But you can see that how that sort of treatment of the black experience, that treatment of of black people and other things that you would see in blackface minstrelsy, a lot of stereotypes that still existed today about how we can run fast and we're over-sexual, we're very violent, we're very strong, we're lazy but we're hardworking, yada yada yada. All these things that are kind of born from this love of black music and this love of this American identity that grows into the South. And as the banjo becomes our national instrument, you know, during this time period, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of banjos were sold, banjo orchestras existed. This becomes this our popular identity. It starts to encompass all these negative things and become this negative connotation of an image, right? And so you can imagine as we're leaving the South and heading, you know, to the north, to the promised land, we would shed the instrument and would shed the things that we associate with, you know, Jim Crow, black codes, yada, yada, yada. So we'll come back to those. What's next on my list? Oh, the record industry. let's talk about Jesus instead. So, yeah, we'll talk about Jesus and talk about the job of the church and how does that change and shift over time. And we can start in the Georgia Sea Islands, where we have our Georgia Sea Islands were a lot of early slave culture, mostly through food and church singing, were preserved for reasons of isolation, both political and geographical. Geographic, they were able to have their land, own their land for a little bit after the Civil War, yada, yada, yada. And so they sing in a style called ring shouts, which involve dancing in a circle, never crossing your legs. Someone known as a stick man, or I guess stick person, pounding on a rhythm with a broom handle and people clapping and singing in a call and response style. Some people believe this is what early slave churches might have sounded like. And if we want to jump back in time a little bit, we can talk about, well, maybe we'll do a song when we talk about that aspect of it. So let's just do a Georgia Sea Island song and get this feeling of early slave churches, and then we'll move forward from there. And the song we're going to do is a good one. Oh, it's so good. Let's do Adam and Eve in the Garden. And if you're home, I guess you're muted, so you can help me. Since it is a call and response, I will sing a line, and your lines will be pinning leaves, pinning leaves. Those are the two lines. Pinning leaves, pinning leaves. So I'll say, Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Sounds very good. Okay, here we go. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. 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 God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam. God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam, pinning leaves. Adam wouldn't answer. Adam wouldn't answer, pinning leaves. Adam wouldn't answer, pinning leaves. Adam wouldn't answer, pinning leaves. God called Adam, 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 pinning leaves. God, I'm ashamed. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. God, I'm ashamed. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam, pinning leaves. God called Adam. God called Adam, pinning leaves. Adam, pinning leaves, where art thou? Pinning leaves. Adam, pinning leaves, where art thou? I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. God, I'm ashamed. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. God called Adam. God called Adam. God called Adam. God called Adam. Adam, pinning leaves, where art thou? Pinning leaves. Adam, pinning leaves, where art thou? God, I'm ashamed. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. God, I'm ashamed. God, I'm ashamed, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Adam in the garden. Adam in the garden, pinning leaves. Great job. Yeah. And you can feel it, that energy. You could just sing that all day. That song can go on and on and on. And so, of course, you have songs like this, these spirituals that are based on these old stories. As you can imagine, certain stories in the Bible that would be appealing to enslaved people, Exodus and all that kind of stuff. Primarily in America, people didn't, the so-called slave owners didn't want the people they were enslaving to be Christian. First, morally, it felt wrong to enslave fellow Christians. And secondly, they would have to give them a day off every week, and that seemed impractical. But over time, this view changed through Anglican missionaries who went around baptizing people. Francis Lejeune is one that's coming to my mind for some reason. As well as being able to use Christianity as a way to control enslaved people, and to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a senior moment. Validate the institution of slavery in America. And indeed, in the 1600s, when they first had slaves, they said, unless they're Christian, we won't do it. And you see this huge wave of Christians getting involved in, a huge wave of black people getting involved in Christianity. So let's just do a song now. This is another gospel song that I really like, or a spiritual song I like. Comes from recordings of Henry Thomas, entitled Jonah in the Wilderness. Jonah, hallelujah, hey, Jonah, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness. Go yonder to the bottom of the ship, seeking you find a certain good-hearted Christian. Oh, yonder to the power of God, seeking you find a certain good-hearted Christian. Surely come back, so say the Lord, could not find a certain good-hearted Christian. Oh, yonder to the hills I saw, seeking you find a certain good-hearted Christian. Show the commandments, so say the Lord, could not find a certain good-hearted Christian. Hey, Jonah, hallelujah, hey, Jonah, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness. God called Noah, said to go and preach. Jonah declared that he would not go. Hid himself in the bottom of the ship, searched that ship from bottom to top. Alas, brother Noah, thrown overboard comes the bird that dropped the seed. From the seed there sprung the root, from the root there sprung the vine, from the vine there sprung the shade. Under that shade brother Jonah lay. I walked right up to old Mary's room to find the shoes that brother Jonah had on. When you get to heaven, I will sit and tell I've escaped old death and hell. Said, hey, Jonah, hallelujah, hey, Jonah, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness. Ship she rocked from shore to shore, ship she rocked from door to door. God declared that you going wrong, you gonna leave that living land. Hey, Jonah, hallelujah, hey, Jonah, preaching in that wilderness, preaching in that wilderness. Okay, hey, Jonah, preaching in that wilderness. And so these spirituals grow, and these stories grow, and and in time you have stuff like the Fisk Jubilee Singers out of Tennessee, and they're singing these old spiritual songs in a very beautiful, melodic kind of classical kind of style, which is beautiful in its own right, in its own artistry, and also an attempt to uplift these songs to show them as beautiful and as strong as whatever classical music that you might appreciate, to give them sort of validity in certain people's eyes, if you will. And then you also get into the age of the gospel singers. And these are people, as opposed to spirituals, maybe songs written by slave poets, songs of the fields. These gospel songs would be for the church, written by the church, so on and so forth. And I guess up my gospel section. Who knows if I'll sneak another one in, because your boy Hubby loves some spirituals and some gospel songs. We'll do one more that comes from a guy named Thomas A. Dorsey, the godfather of gospel, most known for his song "Precious Lord, Take My Hand." And later on, after he stopped writing his dirty songs, such as "They Got It Fixed Right On," "She Missed His Bone, But She Got His Meat," my favorite line of the song. I don't even know what it means, but it don't sound right. He found religion, which a lot of blues players, a lot of bluesmen did. Kind of this bouncing back and forth between the juke joint and the church. So we'll talk about him. And I'll wrap up by saying that at the time that he recorded this, gospel music was coming up, and one of the big things that was happening were preachers on records. So a lot of Southern preachers, putting their sermons and them singing songs with their congregations. These start to sell like hotcakes. One of the first ones was by Reverend J.M. Gates, who was very popular and recorded for, I think, close to a decade, from the early mid-20s on. And a lot of these records were sold to expats, to people who had left the South, people of the Great Migration, hearkening back to, oh yeah, I missed that from back home, or like the sound from back home. And even people up in the North were just like, whoa, I had no idea that a preacher could sound like this. Unfortunately, I cannot preach with the fire and brimstone, but I see if I can give you a little taste of something like that. Once upon a time, we didn't have a house of prayer, and the good Lord come down to us poor colored people, and he bring us a house of prayer. Now we're thanking him for the Holy Ghost entire, praising him around the mountain. Ain't too good for the house of prayer. Now let us all sing together. How well do I remember how Jesus saw me through. Well, I hoped and prayed for a night or two. I said, Lord, take and use me. That's all that I can do. And I gave my heart to Jesus. How about you? How about you? How about you? Well, I hope my Savior is your Savior too. I said, Lord, take and use me, 'cause that's all that I can do. And I gave my heart to Jesus. How about you? When shadows overtake me and troubles start to brew, and I have done the best that I can do, my good friends will talk about me, and sometimes my kinfolks too. But I take it all to Jesus. How about you? How about you? How about you? Well, I hope my Savior is your Savior too. Your Savior too. I said, Lord, take and use me, 'cause that's all that I can do. And I gave my heart to Jesus. How about you? Going there to meet my mother and see my father too. And we'll talk about the things that we used to do. And then someone will ask me, how did you make it through? Well, I come through tribulations. How about you? How about you? How about you? Well, I hope my Savior is your Savior too. I said, Lord, take and use me, 'cause that's all I can do. And I gave my heart to Jesus. How about you? Thank you. How about you? When shadows overtake me and troubles start to brew. So yeah, okay. A really quick overview of spirituals and gospel music going to the north, the popularity, the Fish Jubilee singers and image, and changing black people's image and trying to use that to make it forth some sort of change, and kind of taking the narrative of what black people look like, what black people are, black experience, and using it through Christianity, a holy thing that people understand nationwide. Okay, we did that. What's next? Okay, Skip, let's go back to the record industry. So we're talking about other changes, things that are shed. And we're talking about the banjo and sort of old-time music specifically and going into that. And one of the things that happens is the golden age of recording in the U.S. I guess we can call them one of. I guess if you were really into disco, I guess the 70s would be a golden age for you. If you're really into 90s hip-hop, well, you know, the 90s. But we'll talk about this golden age that happens in the 20s. You have your first country music recording session in Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia. It happens in 1927. You have the first blues song recorded a couple years earlier, Crazy Blues, by another senior moment, Mamie Smith. And so when the record industry comes along, they start making these distinctions between what is black music and what is white music. Excuse me. And they decide that black people are going to be making something called race records. They're going to put blues on the end of all their songs, and they want them to play blues, early rag, early jazz, so on and so forth. White people, you'll be hillbillies forever, and you do all that country junk, and that's what they've decided. Now, you know, more should understand that the difference between two types of banjo players, there's obviously a cultural difference that would happen between a white community and a black community that is, somewhat segregated through the institutions of Jim Crow and other things in the South. But more than likely, two players from the same region will sound more alike than two players of the same race of different regions. Does that make sense? You understand me? So it's basically a superficial kind of distinction to make between the music, but it helps to broaden this gap between what is associated with black music and what is associated with white music, and what black people start to listen to, aspire to, blah, blah, blah. If you can make money playing blues, well, you put the banjo down and grab that guitar and play the blues, right? Just makes sense in that way. So let's talk about those distinctions, and let's play some banjo. And I'll start with, let's do an Uncle Dave Macon song. And let's do one, I feel like finger picking-y. Uncle Dave Macon was one of the early stars of the Grand Ole Opry. Who, as he put it on a record, I worked and toiled with the nigger all my days, which meant he probably learned how to play banjo from a couple of black people. And style-wise, he was a finger picker, he played a mean claw hammer, and had a very broad repertoire that went from tons of gospel songs, spirituals, minstrel songs, so on and so forth. And you can hear in some of his song choices the influence of black community, black culture. Oh no, I said no more gospel songs. I said we'll not do a gospel song. So I'll do one of his songs called Railroading and Gambling, Picking Up Chits for Mammy. Chits are illegal gambling tickets. I'm not cursing like crazy, although my mom says I do have the mouth of a sailor. I think she just means my teeth are messed up. This is a song about numbers or policy. I don't know what they call them around where you live. This illegal gambling thing, and it's something I don't know a lot about, but the history of the lottery in the country and blacks being excluded from it for a period of time. Something I guess I should do more research on, but I remember hearing on the radio a woman whose mother ran policy, and she wrote a whole book about it at the museum in D.C., the new Black Museum. I don't know if it's still new, but it's new to me still. They had a thing about a woman who won her freedom through playing the lottery, and then they were like, okay, we can't have this. So black people were excluded from the lottery for a long time in places. So this song rings true in that sort of respect. Railroading, and then also just the use of mammy just calls back to blackface minstrelsy, which is, as we discussed earlier, kind of this weird understanding of black idioms and language and culture. So here's Railroading and Gambling, Picking Up Chits for Mammy. This is a style of banjo playing recorded during this Golden Age. We're talking about Uncle Dave Macon. All right, don't fight it, we're going to feel it. Ago, keep your coat and hat, be ready to go. Railroading and gambling, picking up chits for mammy, Lord. Feet out the sand, stick 'em in the mud, feet out the sand. Right here. What's going on with you, George String? We'll talk later. And so I wanted to throw record industry, blah, blah, blah. Number 7. Right, and so we have this song, and ethnomusicologists start to come in later on and fill in the gaps of things that we're missing. And some of the most famous of them being, well, famous depending who you're talking to, I guess. But you have the Lomaxes, John Lomax and his kid, Alan Lomax. You also have Zora Neale Hurston. You have John worked III out of Fisk University. So on and so forth. And they start to do a lot of work preserving old songs, preserving regional differences in songs. We get to see how, a song like John Henry, one of the most recorded songs in American history, what it sounds like from Florida all the way through Texas, and those differences that happen in the story. Because of work done by people like ethnomusicologists. We also have these record companies that came along. We're learning that they could sell these records to the communities that were coming in. So, we'll record a bunch of black records and then we'll sell black records to black people and they'll love them. And the people who are coming up north will also be able to have access to this music that they don't have down there. And of course, this is also why a lot of music from other countries was recorded in New York and New Jersey and Chicago. They would record the new immigrants who were coming in and sell them the records. So a lot of calypso music is recorded in New York and Jersey. A lot of rabidica music from Asia Minor recorded here, so on and so forth. So it's just, they're inadvertently doing the work of ethnomusicologists just by making a buck, essentially. One of my favorite albums is one called Black Banjo Songsters of North Carolina and Virginia, recorded by Dr. C.C. Conway at Appalachian State University in North Carolina. Boom, North Carolina. And this is a version of a song called Cuckoo Bird that I love to play. I play it every day, keeps my fingers limber. And she recorded black banjo playing musicians who were not playing blues, were playing old-time music. John worked III did something similar back in the 30s at Fisk University with an album called Altamont, which was getting non-religious, non-blues, old-time banjo music. So it gives us a little bit of glimpse of how this music progressed and grew. And of course we have, I played in a band called Carolina Chocolate Drops, and someone like Joe Thompson was also recorded to get that musical tradition and see how it survived without the aid of a lot of commercial glances on it. So here we go. This song is entitled Cuckoo Bird, Rufus Casey. Gonna build me a little steeple on a mountain so high, so I can see Willie as she goes on by. Well, the cuckoo is a pretty bird. She wobbles and she flies. She never hollers cuckoo till the 4th day of July. When I see you walking, well, woman, tell your mind. Your mind is to marry and leave this town. Little Willie, she's my darling. Little Willie, she's my dear. Little Willie, she's my darling, and I hate to leave her here. pretty bird, she warbled as she flies. Yeah, and I'm looking at the time. I guess I'm gonna sneak one more in. I think I have time for one more, and the one more I'm gonna do. Let's do depressing. Let's do a love song. We'll end on a love song. How about that? And so yeah, I guess I should pick a love song to play. Let's do that one. So yeah, I guess I don't know what the main thesis of this kind of ranting thing would be, but it's something along the lines of what cultural things shifted and changed as the Great Migration was before the Great Migration happened, and as it was in the throes of it. And I guess a lot of that is Black people's connection to the banjo and the creation of early American music, which is a creation of all American art forms, musical art forms, if you will. And how that music was then in turn used to justify systems of injustice from slavery through Jim Crow and pushing Black people out, but also these cultural things being links to lives that we had in the past, and so booming in record sales, if you will. It's something like that. So we'll end with a love song, and I guess one thing I'll say about love songs is years ago I saw a movie. There's a guy named Burt Williams who was a blackface performer, which was very common. It was one of the ways that people could get work in the music industry. Black people pretending to be white people, pretending to be black people. Burt Williams and his partner George Walker had the first all-black show on Broadway, which I think was titled In Dahomey. And just big celebrity star. And he made a couple of movies. And I saw one of his films, which was lost to time for a while, and then found and restored, and they played it at MoMA here in New York. And one of the things they said about it was that it was supposed to come out the same year as Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And after the climate changed a little bit in the country, the movie was pulled. And part of it was that there's a kiss in the film where Burt Williams kisses a woman, a black woman, and there's no joke. There's just a sincerity of we had a funny date, where hilarity ensued, and I like you, and mwah. And that was considered a little bit radical for the time. The idea of black love being this thing that needed to be kept away because it might get people angry. I guess I don't have more to say on it than that. But this is just a love song that I really love. And so it's entitled One Way Girl. There's one thing I love about that gal of mine. There's one thing I love about that gal of mine. There's one thing I love about that gal of mine. Well, she treats me right and loves me all the time. Sometimes I'm broke, hungry as I can be. Sometimes I'm broke, hungry as I can be. Sometimes I'm broke, hungry as I can be. But still my baby, she looks after me. She walked in the rain till her feet got soaking wet. She walked in the rain till her feet got soaking wet. She walked in the rain, feet got soaking wet. And these are the words she said every man she met. Mr. Change $1, give me a lousy dime. Mr. Change $1 and give me a lousy dime. Mr. Change $1 and give me a lousy dime. So I can feed this hungry man of mine. brought me down to her cabaret. She brought me down to her cabaret. She brought me down. And I ate and I drank, but then I went away. This gal I'm loving one way all the time. This gal I love just one way all the time. This gal I love just one way all the time. Takes the blues away and satisfies my mind. One way gal. I see a message here, but I did not read it. Feel free to do an encore if you want. Well, I guess I want. I don't know. How about we do some Q&A section, and then we'll throw one song in at the end of the Q&A if people want it. If that sounds like a good plan.
Well, I think that would be great.
Oh, let me put my headphones in. Sorry, what'd you say?
I said I think that would be great.
Cool.
And so anybody wants to ask a question, go ahead. Let's see. There's 33 of us, so feel free to turn on your camera and microphone and go ahead and ask a question or make a comment. And first of all, that was fantastic. What a delightful evening.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hubby, this is Ron Dye here. I'm the guy that actually booked you for this show, and so I want to thank you. It was a great show, and I've seen a lot of your work and seen you with the Chocolate Drops and on your own. And your performance tonight was delightful in a lot of ways. It was really informative, but also just really natural. And I found myself laughing and grinning a lot. And so I just want to thank you. And a lot of the way that you adapted your performance to our thematic material having to do with the Great Migration was wonderful. And I just want to remind our listeners too that there is some more programming tomorrow afternoon that has to do with the cultural legacies of the Great Migration. So, but thank you, Hubby. That was just a wonderful show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the warm words and thanks for having me. And yeah, I think that's, one thing that I learned from touring a lot with Carolina Chocolate Drops was like, we all shared this passion of, we got to get the news out about Black people in the banjo. And, the more you learn, the more you want to share about our contributions to the country musically. And it makes the music more interesting to know the history. It makes, I think it'll make our country better to understand the history and I guess reckon with it. But we'll save that for next Black History Month, the reckoning part 2. But yeah, I'm just glad that you dug on all that, and that's the mission that I'm trying to get across. So I'm glad you appreciate it.
We got a question in the chat here from Ella Ingram, who asked Mr. Jenkins, wondering about whether there were Black-owned labels in the 1920s.
There were, and I'm ashamed to say that I don't know a lot about it. I know that there were a lot of Black-owned theaters and places where, the early Chitlin Circuit and was it Tough on Black Asses, TOBA, theater of, I forget the real name of it now, but they used to call it Tough on Black Asses because apparently it was hard on musicians and stuff like that. This is like Bessie Smith and that sort of generation. When it comes to Black-owned record labels, I really don't know a lot about it. I know it existed, but I don't know a lot about it. Sorry.
But that would be a great thing to research, Ella.
I think that's my next homework assignment. Just an whole album of old-time blues songs and old-time music just from Black-owned labels of the golden age of recording between 1922 and 1932. The record just wrote itself. Boom.
Yeah. That's great. Who else has a question or comment? Yes, Joe.
Hubby, that was wonderful. Thanks for taking us on that journey from roots to wings and back to roots again. I'm wondering, I'm assuming that you're a fabulous musician and got a great voice. I'm assuming that you're also a songwriter and creator of your own music. And I wondered if that is indeed the case, or are you content to be an interpreter? And what that kind of music is like, and I would even say, if you close with one song, I'd love to hear one of yours.
Sure. I appreciate you enjoying the show and everything. I don't really write a lot of songs. When I do write songs, they're usually, I've written a bunch of soul songs,
Cool.
especially during the shutdowns last year. I was just like, with my electric bass, which was, one of my first instruments, and just like writing soul songs about how Virginia needs to stay home and stuff like that. I write a lot of silly songs. When I was living in Amsterdam, I got into writing, instead of sending postcards, I would write mini rap songs for people. So it'd be like 1:30 long. And instead of playing video games, I would just make beats on like GarageBand and just send people rap songs and stuff like that. But yeah, interpreting or covering is really, I don't know, sort of a passion, I guess. The joy of uncovering these old songs and giving them new life, or the history around them, or putting them in that scope. That's kind of where I get my thrills, if you will.
That's really wonderful, especially after so much expropriation of Southern black music by white musicians in the 60s and 70s. Just today I learned that Going Up the Country that Canned Heat recorded is something from way back in the 1920s. I mean, almost verbatim.
It's actually from Henry Thomas, the guy. One of the songs I did tonight was from Henry Thomas. Yeah. So.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Hubby.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, man.
Hey, our colleague Keith Nightenhelser raised his hand virtually. Keith, did you have a question? You're muted. Keith, you're still muted.
Hi.
There
This
you
is
go.
Keith. Hi. I just wanted to do one little follow-up. I was trying to find this online, but I wasn't able to the question about the black recording industry. I've forgotten now how I traced this out, but there were some black entrepreneurs that got to be very, very rich publishing sheet music in this era. When folks went to music stores, bought sheet music, took it home, played it on the piano. And I believe that the route I discovered this through involved tracing the career of Noble Sissel, who was the co-author with U.B. Blake of Shuffle Along, and who was a DePaul student for a while. He was from Indianapolis originally. But so it would stand to reason that there might be some recording industry, but there certainly was a big music publishing industry that had black entrepreneurs that became very wealthy publishing songs in the golden era of recordings.
Yeah, I forget about sheet music, probably because I forgot how to read sheet music such a long time ago. But yeah, thanks for throwing that in and reminding us about that. And I know like a lot of the sheet music that I've seen usually comes from, this kind of blackface minstrel era, and then the post era, which I don't know what you would call that, kind of melancholic, Stephen Foster kind of stuff. But you get, people, I keep thinking of the name Ernest Hogan, who I think maybe he wrote All Coons Look Alike to Me, which a lot of white people took in a very wrong way, but written by a black person, But I think a lot of sheet music that I know of from coming from black people is either for theater or in that blackface tradition, and of course ragtime music. So yeah, thanks for that. That's a good point. I like this. I've got homework.
Hey, we had another question also from Ella Ingram, which is, what era of music is your favorite to perform? Or do you have a favorite?
What is my favorite era?
Yeah.
Oof. I don't think I have one. It depends on the day. If it's good music, I like to play it. And if I can play it well, then I love to play it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that my sweet spot is from the early mid 20s into the 30s, into the mid 30s. That's probably like my sweet spot of favorite music to perform. I think it's just when a lot of really just this outburst of great musicians were recorded and discovered and allowed to breathe, from through country music, through old time music, through blues, through all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of probably my favorite to perform for sure. Although, I also love playing the bass, electric bass, and I like playing like soul music and Motown songs and New Orleans like soul from like the 50s and 60s. That's that's my secret love that I play. Like, if someone needs a bassist when I'm home from tour in New York, I can jump in on a soul gig or something. But yeah.
Great. Nina Thompson raised her virtual hand. Nina, do you have a question?
Yes. Hi. Thank you for performing, first of all. And my question was, why is it meaningful for you to bring this era of music kind of back into like the 21st century? And how is that meaningful for you to be playing this specific style of music?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good question. Why is it meaningful to be playing this style of music? Why? That's a big question. I think that I was listening to the radio the other day, or listening to a podcast the other day, and someone was talking about, no, it wasn't a podcast. I was watching that John Oliver show, and this guy was talking about growing up in Oklahoma City, and he went to college somewhere else and learned about Black Wall Street while he was at this college there. And he's just like, no, that doesn't exist. Like, I've never heard of it. Like, and he wasn't from OKC, whatever, Tulsa. He's like, I'm from Tulsa. I've never heard of this before. It doesn't exist. And he had to learn, like, kind of as an adult that Black Wall Street existed, where he grew up in the place, where it had happened. And when I learned that the banjo was a black instrument at the age of 21 or whatever, it was a very similar feeling. It was just like, wait, what? Not hee-haw, not deliverance, not like all this other stuff. Like, the banjo's a black instrument, so then what else? Like, if the banjo's a black instrument, then what the hell else has been going on, And so for me, it was that opening of the door of the lies my teacher told me in elementary, middle school, high school, yada, yada, yada. And once I started diving into that history, it was learning like, well, the history I've been told about this music has kind of been covered up or is a lie or is different than what it's supposed to be. And all this history that's around it, I just never knew and was never told. And so it makes me reevaluate my country. It gives me the empowerment to, to be black. It gives me the empowerment to rebel. It gives, to go to rallies, to go to protests. It's this reckoning of like, this is my history. This is what I've contributed to this country as a black person. And so it gives me the strength to push the fight towards, the word reckoning keeps coming up tonight, but the reckoning and the education and the changes that are needed to have that country change. And some people do it through education. Some people do it through, Richard Pryor and people like Bill Hicks, although some of his stuff is problematic now, still do it through their comedy. I'm a musician, so I do it through that. I do it through music, and this is my passion, music. And so in this music, in this old time music, and in this music from this era that I love to perform the most, is our history, is the change, is all the gears at work to oppress and to fight oppression, to love and not be allowed to love, to escape, to be captured, to do all these things, is like in this music. And so I think I answered your question if I didn't ramble too much, but that's the meaning of the music to me, basically, or performing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just would like to say how much I enjoyed this. I was raised on this kind of music. My father was from Virginia and sang a lot of blackface and minstrel songs most of which I don't feel comfortable singing anymore, but love the uke. And if I looked around hard enough, I could probably find 6 or 8 banjos in this room. So I'm sorry you are. Are you in town?
I'm in Queens, New York.
Well, that doesn't count then. I'd you over, but you'd probably turn me down.
I gotta
don't
say
think
though,
so, you know.
we really got to find a way to bring you here when the pandemic is over, either to perform at DePaul during the school year or on our summer music festival, because it would be so wonderful to have a live in-person audience engaging with you and singing back and
do you remember that? Do you remember those
yeah,
days?
man. Oh, wow. That just, I missed that so much. I want to tell everybody that Keith Nightenhelzer and Joe Peters have posted some really great links in the chat. So take a look at that. And your Zoom may be set up to save chat when the meeting ends, or it may not be. And if it isn't, you can, if you look down at the bottom of the chat window, there's a place where you can, with 3 dots, and you can save the chat. So it's set up so you can save that if you want to save those links as a text file. Let's see, it's after 8:30, I think. Yeah. But this is wonderful hanging out. Just any other questions?
If people have questions,
really
have a little bit of time. If we got
what?
a couple more.
Yeah, that would
I've
be
got
great.
time, so
Hey, we do want to just
copying these links.
before we do that, we do want to just make another thank you to Indiana I almost said Indiana Humidity, Indiana Humanities, who made this program possible, as well, I think, as a lot of the other events with the symposium that this is the kickoff for. And that's a grant from Indiana Humanities in cooperation with the get this right, National Endowment for the Humanities. We're just so grateful for that. And as the organizer and host of these weekly concerts, want to invite everybody to come every Wednesday at 7:30. And also really thank Ron Dye for not only booking Hubby, but and doing whatever you did to make this possible, but for the great support that the DePaul Performing Arts Series, which is not happening in person, has given to our virtual music series. It's great to be partnering, and we would love to hear more music.
Oh, sure. I'll play some more music. I haven't played. I'll do something with a slide because I haven't done that. How about that? What am I gonna play? Yeah, thanks for making this work out. Thanks for everyone coming through. Thanks for the great questions. Of course, Black Swan Records, DERF. And yeah, I will play a song. I won't play a gospel song. I will play a song about a train. About all the trains. It's semi-gospel. It comes from the playing Mississippi Fred McDowell. And it's, like in the old gospel tradition of, I'll see my mother over there, I'll see my father on the other side, where it's the afterlife, but it's also, out of here. When the train comes along is one of those. And I just started playing a different song. If you see my mother and she asked for me, Lord. Gonna meet her at the station when the train come along. When the train come along, Lord. When the train come along. When the train come along, Lord. Gonna meet her at the station when the train come along. If you see my sister and she asks for me, Lord, gonna meet her at the when the train come along. When the train come along, Lord. When the train come along, Lord, gonna meet her at the station. When the train come along, play a song. If you see my father and he asks for, gonna meet him at the station when the train come along. 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 Gonna meet him at the station when the train come along. Take it home. Train comes along. Yeah, man.
Wow, that's great. You know, I just got to say, one of the things I've come to see in my career as a musician and in all the performing arts is that when somebody really has mastered something, it's really like the music is playing them or the song is singing them. You know, I just absolutely, you are just totally one with that music. And there's just nothing greater for me than to witness that. That's just so beautiful. And
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
And to see the love you have. Now, our motto is community through shared arts experiences, and we've had that. And before we all go off to have dinner or go jogging or go be inspired to practice the cello, in my case, if you could put your camera on so we can see each other and wave to each other, I think that would be great, because one of the things we really, really want is, and are dedicated with this series, is that people have an experience of being with each other every week. And it's wonderful to see new faces and familiar faces.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And Hubby, I'm gonna jump in again as soon as this pandemic has lightened up some and we're allowed to bring guests on campus. I'll be looking you up.
Please do. My bag's already packed. I'm ready to get out of here already.
Yeah, your go bag, huh?
Really, you want to get?
Yeah. My gig go bag. Yeah.
Oh man, you just love it here. I could tell you. Just love it here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so you know, there's so many people who make this possible, and I want to thank Carol Craig, who, at least as I look at the screen, is right next to me over there, who is our board president, and David Knott, who's on our board, is there. I'm trying to look and see you know, who's still around. But we do, in addition to Indiana Humanities and the National Endowment for Humanities, DePaul Performing Arts Series, there's so many people over the years have, you know, given money to the Summer Music Festival and now the Virtual Music Festival. And normally I would have a title come up and I would point my fingers and say, if you want to donate money, you can go to greencastlemusic.org/donate. And we also are very grateful to the endowment that we have at the Putnam County Community Foundation, which is now well over $80,000 and, providing a lot. And we're very thankful to, I think he may have left, but there he is, Eric Freeman, and the Putnam County Convention and Visitors Bureau, which supports us. So a lot of people make this forum possible. And what the great blessing, the silver lining in the cloud of the pandemic is that we get to have events with people all over the country. And what a privilege to have you with us tonight, Hubby, really. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I'm privileged to be able to just play in front of strangers again. So thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Well, if there's no other parting comments, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Hubby. We managed to stream it onto YouTube and to Facebook, and I've also recorded it here on Zoom. So tell your friends, and the audience will keep growing and rippling out. And
that's the way.
Go to hubbyjenkins.com and buy anything there is to buy.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Well, thanks again.
See you all next time. Yeah. All right.
Bye, Hubby.
Bye.